Good evening. Thank you for watching our briefing in English. Today we focus on equal opportunity and how Malta compares with the rest of Europe and the world. We meet Melissa Patch. Thank you, Melissa, for welcoming us to your home.
Thank you, it's my pleasure. Thank you for the invite.
I'd like to speak a bit about you. Tell me about your childhood.
So, when I was young, obviously I was born with my condition. It's called Osteogenesis Imperfecta. I had quite a different childhood in the sense that every child who doesn't have a disability, for example, a physical disability, is different than a child who has a disability in terms of like how physically, for example, they can run, they can jump, or they can play, you know. So for me, it was a very different childhood in that terms, and for me it was something that was a bit more difficult kind of to accept, because when you're young, you don't understand like why you can do things that other children can do, and that was something that I struggled with, and it was something that for me it took time to understand why I wasn't able to do the things that other children were able to. But all in all, like, it was a very happy childhood, I have a very loving, supporting family. I have and had a lot of friends throughout my childhood, so it was a very happy childhood. It was different than, a typical childhood, but it was a very happy one.
Consultant orthopedic surgeon Mr. Alistair Patch tells us a bit more about Melissa's condition.
The condition which Melissa has is called Osteogenesis Imperfecta. As we can see, Melissa is able to live a near normal life. Osteogenesis imperfecta is an inherited genetic condition which affects about 1 in 20,000 and makes bones brittle and fragile. It is caused by a defect in collagen, which is in fact the building block of bone, and bones thus become soft and break easily. There are other conditions which may be associated with Osteogenesis imperfecta, including easy bruising, problems with curved spines, hearing loss, breathing, etc. The condition may be mild to severe. There are actually 19 types of Osteogenesis imperfecta, but 4 are the most common, type 1 to type 4. The diagnosis is done by genetic testing, and treatment is usually multidisciplinary and involves occupational therapy, physiotherapy, and also preventative measures and for preventing breakages in the bones, including splints, casts, and brace. Some of these patients require multiple surgery, unfortunately, to fix these broken bones. But with a good multidisciplinary team, these patients are able to live a near normal life.
I used to go to a school which, although it was accessible, the school itself, but to go to the playground, it wasn't wheelchair accessible, so I couldn't access it in any way. And in fact, like, it was something I used to feel like sad about, because it's something obviously you want to integrate with other children, with your schoolmates, even though I wasn't able to run around and that sort of thing. But it's always nice to kind of be around other children. So I used to spend, my breaks in the classroom. They would let, of course, one friend of mine stay with me in the break, but it still felt, very sad that I wasn't able to join other children, and play with them.
Do you think today that things have improved for school-age children?
I feel that as we go along, yes, I feel a lot of things have improved in terms of accessibility, especially like with opening of new establishments or new schools, and I feel like that's really important, because I feel that whenever a new school or establishment opens, it's important that accessibility is on the forefront, because of course you never know who is going to access certain things. I went to junior college I furthered my studies at university and I graduated with a Bachelor of Commerce in Accountancy and Banking and Finance. And now I'm currently doing ACCA.
Which involves a lot of studying.
Yes, it does involve a lot of studying, and especially when you're working full time, it's quite a challenge because you need to balance things out between your social life, which is important, of course, between work and between studying as well, of course.
From where I sit, I see that you have found a balance yourself. You seem to have a good social life. You're very educated and carrying on. Do you believe that your strong family network has helped you to reach your potential?
No, definitely. Most definitely, my strong family background has helped me reach what I have achieved so far, basically, because I feel like if I didn't have the support, especially like growing up, I feel my family always instilled in me that, education is very important, for example. Social life is very important as well. Obviously work as well. So they always strive for me to achieve that balance and to have, everything that I want to achieve, basically. Since I was very young, I was very ambitious. I always knew what I wanted in life, and I always wanted to achieve a lot. So it was like a matter of time till I arrived to the next step.
Melissa explains how she strives to achieve an independent lifestyle with her personal determination and ambition. Tell me a bit about your trip. I was fascinated to hear it because you went to London alone. And I know many girls your age, women your age, will not go to London alone. And that was the first time, isn't
Yes.
it? Tell me a bit
Yes,
about it.
definitely. Basically, before COVID hit, it had been on my mind for a long time to go to a trip to London, basically, because London was always like a place that fascinated me, and I went there with my parents a few years back. And in fact, I remember on that trip, I told my parents, the next time I'll be here alone. I had already been envisioning myself to come back alone, basically. Since I had been wanting to do it, I was thinking about how I can go about it, basically, because of course you need to think about a lot of stuff before doing such a trip, especially in terms of accessibility, in terms of me. A few months before that trip, I had bought an electric wheelchair, which is the wheelchair I traveled with. Of course, because with the manual wheelchair, I wouldn't have been able to go long distances. When it comes to electric wheelchair, especially even one step matters, because it cannot be lifted, it cannot be carried. So of course I had to think ahead, but it's always been something that I wanted to do, and I'm so happy that I managed to do it. To be able to do such a thing on your own feels very freeing and very independent, Traveling alone is not, at least for me, it's not something small, especially, being a wheelchair user, I do see improvements in Malta and establishments around Malta, but I do feel that there is a lot of more work to be done. I feel like sometimes it makes me sad to see new establishments being open, for example, new restaurants or something, and they would have stairs. How is that possible in 2021 to not think ahead, and do something? Because obviously something can be done, obviously. If not a ramp, a lift or something, or something can always be done. And if thought ahead, obviously, it would be much easier, of course. But although we're improving, there's still a lot to go, sometimes even pavements. You start, with a ramp, then you reach the other end and you don't find a ramp. If I'm using the electric wheelchair, I literally would have to turn around, go back to the ramp I went in from, and walk on the street literally, because I would have no other option. Obviously with my manual wheelchair, if I'm going with someone, they can help me, but it shouldn't be the case. If you go up on a ramp, you should go down on a ramp. Or for example, sometimes there's not in terms of accessibility, but more like people thinking and logic. Sometimes people park in front of ramps. I mean, it shouldn't be done, because of course, yes, you can call the police for the car to be removed, but it shouldn't be the case that you have to wait to go on a pavement and when it's the safest thing to do. It's sometimes a bit of logic can go a long way as well.
What do you do when you come across something like that? Do you actually report it? Because it takes, sometimes maybe I would go to the same place and it would go unnoticed by me because I didn't need that facility. So what do you do?
No, for me, in terms, for example, of pavements, I wouldn't call, for example, someone to with that particular pavement or something. But with particular establishments, I always ask beforehand, whether it's wheelchair accessible, for them to also maybe instill, the thought that maybe, okay, we should think about wheelchair access more. I'm not the kind of person who's you should have accessibility. I mean, although I feel that way, but I feel like the way, of course, I get the message across, the way, I communicate it, I feel like people would react to it differently and would be more open to it as well, and would be more feel like making it more accessible. There are still some people who, for example, you would be in a restaurant or they would tap your head, for example, which I know it's not something that comes from a bad mindset or anything. It's not ill intended. It's just something that's sometimes they would see me as being a child. When of course when you're out with friends or something, it feels uncomfortable to kind of have that treatment. But I feel like we're getting there, and we're much more educated than we were in the past. Of course, education about these instances needs to be a part of the curriculum. Not just etiquette, but how people perceive as well people with disability, because I feel like it's a lot has to do with perception. And when it comes to other areas of life as well, I feel like we need to as well improve with educating people to kind of be more open-minded. I feel that's very important to avoid any discrimination, any stigmas.
Tell me a bit about your blogging. You blog about fashion, makeup, food, you're a vegan. Tell me more about it.
I started with the intention of breaking social stigmas when it comes to people with disabilities, because I feel like although we're improving a lot, I feel like there are a lot of people who have still social stigmas when it comes to persons with disability, and I don't feel it's right, because again, some people see people with disability as some sorts of different people. But it's not the case, because at the end of the day, we're literally the same people as any other people. I love blogging. I love sharing parts of my life. I mean, apart from it raising awareness about disability and social stigma, I love obviously makeup and fashion. That's something that I'm very passionate about. So I enjoy sharing my looks with my audience. Food as well, because I'm a foodie and I love food. I'm a vegan as well, so I like to raise awareness about that as well.
Businesswoman Diane Nikolic, a pioneer in the beauty sector, shares her comments with us about fashion blogger Melissa Patch.
Whenever I'm teaching one-to-one lessons, I always start by telling people we are all beautiful. Each and every one of us is unique. And it is important not to be influenced by social media posts where everyone looks perfect. We have to remember that there's a lot of filters and that people are real. Everyone has defects, everyone is different. But I always like to see people as no matter what size, what shape, we're all beautiful. I think it's important to believe in yourself. It's important to groom yourself, because grooming is part of feeling good. But to accept yourself the way you are is unbelievably satisfying. So I think that's the first step of being beautiful. I admire a lot is someone like Melissa Patch, who has defeated all of this low self-esteem or whatever. She's just beautiful because she's accepted herself and she looks amazing.
Melissa shares her thoughts regarding Santiago, a 5-year-old Portuguese boy who was abandoned by his parents because of some intellectual disabilities, a story that appeared in the press this week. Santiago has now been adopted by a Maltese couple, Noel and Chris Gagliavella, who say that their new son is integrating very well with his new family and brother of 9 years. Here is what Melissa has to say.
It's not nice, to see, especially me being a person with disability, to see someone who was given up for adoption because of his disability, But of course, it's something that ended up in a very beautiful way, because this boy ended up in a loving family, and is being given the opportunities that he deserves, and a loving family, which everyone deserves, of course. But it's very heartbreaking to see these situations still happening nowadays. That people with disabilities are being seen as second class, kind of, It's not an easy experience, and I can imagine, parenting wise, it's not an easy thing to do as well, because you would be prepared to have a different life, and of course when having a child with disability, it changes your life, it changes your future in a way, kind of. But of course, I feel like nowadays as well, with improvements around the world, it's become much easier than it was before, and I feel like I encourage for parents that have children with disabilities to kind of encourage them to kind of not keep them in a box, to help them reach their goals as well, to support them, to be there for them.
Do people come to your page and ask you questions and seek support from you?
Yes, some people do reach out to me. I had some parents as well reach out to me, and they told me that I give them a lot of courage because they have children with disabilities. It's very heartwarming to see that my message and my aim is kind of being reached, basically. And some people, for example, reach out to me to ask me whether a certain establishment is wheelchair accessible, for example, whether I know. It's the simple things. It's just it's very heartwarming, because I feel like with my following as well, I'm building a community, and that's my aim as well, to kind of find support within each other, not just about fashion and makeup, which is something I'm passionate about, but also in terms of disability.
I feel a lot of good energy from you, high energy levels. You actually leave a person feeling very positive. I visited you before and I felt very positive leaving here. How do you keep so positive?
To be honest, obviously I'm not positive all the time, Obviously, like everyone else, we have those periods where we feel less maybe motivated or maybe sad. But all in all, in the majority, I'm very, very positive. I'm very high vibe all the time. Basically, I try to see the positive in every circumstance. Sometimes it's difficult in certain circumstances which are perceived as being more difficult, to find the silver lining in it. But I feel it really helps me with staying in a happy place as well, with seeing the positive side of things. What helps me as well, it's I try to meditate as well every day. It's something that helps me, to stay grounded and stay living in the moment as well.
And some comments from Melissa about the crisis in Afghanistan.
very sad indeed, and especially like when it comes to women, like of course I feel it even more, maybe because I'm a woman myself, but I feel like, you know, the freedom of females, you know, of women being threatened, you know, it's something very sad. Some women like were studying, were working, and now, for example, they have to stay home for a period of time, because those were the advice that was given for a temporary time, which is sad because, you know, men weren't asked to do that, you know, to stay home until more regulations were issued. It's not equality at all, and it's not how it should be, and it's very heartbreaking. It's very sad. Of course, like, women can speak up and can, you know, do so much, but like if they don't have the support of the male community as well, it's difficult to achieve equality, you know. I mean, we see actors and actresses across the world who, for example, actors are paid more than actresses, and the male actors would not take the full salary to be equal to women, you know. If women have that kind of support in all areas of life, in all countries, you know, it's much more easier to achieve equality. So it goes both ways. Obviously, you know, women, it's important to speak up, to always, whenever they're discriminated, whenever there's something they feel it's unjust. But of course, like, it needs to come from all people, not just women.
Thank you very much, Melissa. You're very inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Do you believe we are doing enough in our society to eliminate the barriers required that empower equal participation in our society? Send your comments via WhatsApp.
Of course, I need help maybe for certain things, but as much as possible I try to do things myself. I definitely don't feel I'm missing out on life or on anything. Anything I want to do, like, I do it regardless of limitations. You know, I find a way to work around that, and I have no problem with that. So no, I definitely don't feel I'm missing out on anything in life. I feel that everyone can achieve anything in life. I feel that whatever adversity you're facing, always looking on the bright side and, you know, trying to see the silver lining in things, you can achieve anything with the right support, with the right help. Of course, when it's necessary, I feel that anything can be achieved.
Thank you for watching our briefing in English on equal opportunities and disability. How does Malta compare to the rest of the world? I hope you enjoyed meeting Melissa Patch. I'm Leah Hogg for Net TV. Should you have any comments or queries, please send them to the number that appears on the screen. I wish you a good evening.